Hi friends, it's Valerie. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to this week's What's for Dinner. If you are new here, I would love if you would hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. And don't forget to leave a like or a comment down below because it really does help my channel. This week's What's for Dinner, I've got some new meals for you. One of the meals I was doing was trying a recipe that I saw over on In the Kitchen with Mama Mel's channel, and it was a cheddar Ritz chicken. So good. Loved that chicken a lot. And then I got some new sides that I really enjoyed, trying to incorporate some more vegetables in my life right now. So I really hope that you enjoy those. But anyways, let's just get started. Okay, I started my Sunday off with some Panda Express for dinner. I got honey walnut shrimp and mushroom chicken, and then some just half and half of chow mein and fried rice. And then my boyfriend got orange chicken, and I'm actually not sure what the other meat item he got was, but we really enjoy Panda. It always hits the spot, and it was nice to enjoy my Sunday. I'm trying to keep this rule of maybe getting takeout, and also that would mean no dishes, so a nice relaxing day for me. I had been craving spaghetti, so I figured this one pot spaghetti would be great. I had already boiled my 16-ounce package of noodles, and I'm taking this Prego roasted garlic parmesan sauce. It's one of the ones I really like a lot, and I'm just putting that whole jar right into the bottom of the pan that I cooked the noodles in. I took a little bit of water to get the remaining sauce out, and a little bit of sugar. I always like to add a little bit of sugar to my sauce. I don't really measure, it's just a little bit. And then I stirred it all together and I let that sauce warm up. And then once the sauce was warmed, I added my drained spaghetti noodles to that, and I give it all a good toss in the sauce. And I add cheese. My preference is some mozzarella cheese and some Parmesan cheese, and I don't really measure. I just sprinkle to my liking. I toss it all around, let that cheese melt. I give it a taste. I add more Parmesan if needed. I also like to add some like Italian seasoning to that. I think it really brings out some good flavors. I serve this with a side Caesar salad, and I put some fresh basil on the top of my spaghetti, and I made some cheesy bread out of sourdough bread and some cheesy spread that I get from a local restaurant to me, and that really hit the spot for me because I love that cheesy bread. But overall, this was a delicious meal. I was really craving that spaghetti, so it made me very happy. We haven't had some basic crunchy tacos in a while, and I had some taco shells I found that I needed to use up, so they're just the stand-in stuffed taco shells. I do ground beef with taco seasoning, and then just my favorite toppings, which is a lot of cheese for me, lettuce, tomato, and some of my favorite Valentina hot sauce. I normally do Spanish rice with tacos like this, but I was really craving cilantro lime rice, so I went ahead and made that. I will leave a link to a video where I've made that in the past. It is definitely one of my favorite side dishes. I had seen this recipe over on my friend Mel's channel. Her channel is In the Kitchen with Mama Mel. I'm sure you all know and love her. She is just the sweetest person ever. But yeah, I saw this recipe. It looked super good, like so many of her recipes do. But I love chicken, so I wanted to give this a try. I'm taking 2 sleeves of Ritz crackers. I have them in a Ziploc bag, and I'm just crushing them up. This is great therapy. It's like so nice. It feels like you're releasing some negative energy and just getting rid of it all. But you can, use a rolling pin, put it in a little food processor, do whatever works for you. And then to that, I'm adding a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and an 1/8 teaspoon of pepper, and I mix that all together to combine those ingredients. You're just gonna make your little dipping station here, so I have separate containers, and then in this container I'm doing a 1/2 cup of milk, and then you're gonna grate 3 cups of cheese. This is where I made some mistakes, some big mistakes. So I started to dip the chicken. I grated that cheese, and it was using the larger side of the grater. Next time, well, I ended up having to grate finer cheese, and you'll see this here, but I did want to show you all the mistakes I made. It just wasn't sticking at all. I thought, oh, I can fix this. I'll put the cheese in the blender, it'll become finer. No, it became a big, like, clumpy mess. And then I thought, oh, I could still fix this. Nothing's working for me. Let me add some cracker crumbs into that. That's gonna break up some of those clumps. No, it just made a cracker and cheese clump. It was so bad, y'all. But I learned a lot during this process, and later on I did read comments and see that people did struggle to keep the cheese sticking to this chicken. I saw that one person said that they resolved that by putting egg into their milk, and that helped bind it better. But I just grated finer cheddar cheese this time. I didn't put all of it in there just in case I didn't have to use it all. I only put like a little at a time as I needed it. And it still was a struggle to stick, but I just kind of placed the chicken in my hand, and on one side I put some of the cheese and then just flipped it on over into those crackers. That adhered it very well. Then with that open side of plain chicken facing upward, I added the cheese on top of that side and pressed it, just flipped it over onto the cracker, pressed it down, and then gently move that over into my prepared baking dish that has been greased, and that seemed to work perfectly for me. So I just repeated that process, covered the chicken, and the recipe that I'll have linked for you says to bake this at 400 degrees for 35 minutes, and then like remove your covering or foil and bake it for another 10 minutes. So I halved my chicken breast, so I only cooked this for 25 minutes and it was done. And this is what it looked like out of the oven. I didn't get it too brown. It's in like a nice golden brown without being too overdone. And I served this with some roasted just baby potatoes and just some canned green beans with some butter and salt on them. And wow, this chicken was so delicious. A little hassle getting to learn it, but definitely worth learning because it is just so good. If you love cheese the way I love cheese, you're definitely going to love this recipe. And I will leave Mama Mel's channel linked in the description box down below. If you haven't checked her out already, go ahead and do that because you're definitely missing out if you haven't already. For this, I'm starting off by cutting up some chicken breast. I made some strips first, and then I'm going to cut that into some smaller bite-sized pieces. I like a little bit smaller, the better for me in this type of recipe. You'll need about a pound or so. I'm actually doing a little bit more just because I wanted some extra chicken for our lunch the next day, but you'll just need about a pound's worth. I did about a pound and a half's worth. And then for the stir fry sauce, of course you can buy a pre-made one, but I'm going to make it by combining half a cup of chicken broth with a quarter cup of honey, about 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar. You can also use apple cider vinegar if that's all you have. About a half a tablespoon of sesame oil. If you don't like that, you can omit that. About a teaspoon or so of oyster sauce. I have this gochujang chili pepper paste. I'm using about a teaspoon's worth of that. You can use any other garlic chili paste or sriracha, anything like that. You can omit it if you don't like any chili at all. It just adds a nice little bit of flavor. I give that all a good stir. Now to my pan, I'm just adding a little bit of oil. I poured some in, and then I like to give it a spray. For some reason, I think the spraying it like really makes it stick better, like or like not spread out. And then I just, once that's hot, I just put my chicken in the pan. I spread that to a nice even layer, and I'm gonna season it with some garlic powder. You can season it with whatever you like, but I'm just gonna do some garlic powder. That's like a must for me, and a little bit of paprika, or maybe a little bit more than a little bit because I poured a little more than I wanted to, but it's okay. It tasted great. So then I just cook that through. It's about a total of maybe 6 minutes. When that's going to depend on how big you cut your chicken, and I just let that cook. I also got this teriyaki kit. It's got a lot of different vegetables in it. Of course, you can cut your own vegetables that you like: snap peas, broccoli, zucchini, carrots, all that stuff. But this had a nice blend of things I wanted. I did buy a zucchini and forgot to. I was gonna like add it in with this, but I forgot. So I let those just saute down for a few minutes. I added the sauce in. Well, like half the sauce I added in. I gave it a stir. I let that begin to just like simmer some more in the sauce. And this is gonna just depend on the doneness you like your vegetables, like how crisp you want your carrots. And then I had these ready ramen noodles in my fridge that I needed to use up, so I thought this is a perfect meal for that. So I just dump those in there, but you can use like prepackaged like top ramen noodles even. That's what I typically use for something like this. But this is what I had already. You can even just not put noodles and serve this over rice, whatever your preference is on that. You can just like omit any noodles from this part. But I did add the remaining sauce in there and the chicken. Again, like I said, I cooked extra because I wanted some for a lunch. But I just added what looked good as ratio wise when it came to this, and I let my noodles heat up, just giving it all a good stir, letting that chicken re-warm a bit. This meal was so delicious. I love a good stir fry. It's a quick throw together meal. I love that. Like, you can make this so fast and it's always really enjoyable. Everybody always tends to love a good stir fry. And I love all the veggies and the chicken. This did not disappoint. It was my first time making that specific stir fry sauce, and I enjoyed it a lot. So for this, I'm starting off by making the rub for the pork, and to a bowl I'm going to combine a teaspoon of paprika with a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon each of dried thyme and dried rosemary. Mine was whole rosemary, so I had to, well, I didn't have to, but I chose to go ahead and grind that up to make it more fine, and then some salt and pepper to taste. So I did about a quarter teaspoon of pepper, half a teaspoon of salt, and I did mix that all together. Now, the recipe I'll have linked for you calls for pork loin. I'm going to be using 2 pork tenderloins. It's a little over 2 pounds for me, and I'm just going to spritz them with a little bit of oil to help the rub stick better, and I'm going to just pour the rub onto the pork and just kind of rub it all around all sides to get that nice and coated. Some of it's going to fall on, I'm just doing this on my prepared baking sheet so that I don't really have to like transfer it or anything like that. So some of the rub's going to fall on the sides, and I just kind of press the pork down into that to pick it up so those bits get used up and they don't just burn up to the side as well. Now, to a large skillet over medium-high heat, I've added a tablespoon of olive oil. I'm placing my pork tenderloins in there 1 minute each side over medium-high heat to go ahead and sear these up on, like I said, like about a minute on each side, so about 3 to 4 minutes total. And this is going to create a nice crust as well as keep all those nice juices inside of the meat. And while the meat was searing, I combined the honey garlic glaze. So to a bowl, I've added a quarter cup of honey, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard, a tablespoon of olive oil, and then I didn't have fresh garlic, but about 4 cloves worth of some minced garlic that I have in this little tube here, and I'm just stirring that all together. I'm just using the spoon that I measured it all out with. You can use a whisk if that's easier for you. I just want to dissolve that honey a little bit and combine those ingredients. Now I've had the pork tenderloin back on to my prepared baking dish that I showed you earlier, and I'm just basting that sauce all over it. I am using my meter probe here, which is a wireless thermometer that you can like put into the oven or grills, and it's gonna like help me control it on my phone and just see what the temperature is while it cooks, because I didn't want this to overcook. Pork can really just be so dry when it's overcooked. But anyways, I flipped that over and poured the sauce on the other side as well. There's lots of sauce here. I also did reserve 2 tablespoons of that. It has you reserve it in the recipe for vegetables. I'm just reserving it like to put over the pork when it's done, because I'm not doing the vegetable portion of their recipe. But I am doing my own vegetables, so I have started a different recipe, and it's going to be like this summer corn and green bean recipe. So I have a lot of water in a large pot. Once it was boiling, I added some salt heavily, kind of like how I salt my pasta water, 2 tablespoons of salt. I gave that a stir to dissolve the salt, and then I added in, I did about a pound's worth of green beans. It's maybe 3/4 of a pound, because I think I bought a pound, but then once you trim it, you're going to lose some weight. But the recipe does call for half a pound. But anyways, I'm going to let these green beans sit in the boiling water for just a couple minutes. That's going to make them tender crisp, and then I'll remove them. The recipe says to move them to an ice bath to stop the cooking process. That's your preference, up to you. I didn't mind letting them cook a little bit more. I don't want them super cooked, but it wasn't really going to be that long to need an ice bath, I guess. And I'm doing things a little bit different. After you remove the green beans, they wanted you to boil the corn. I'm not going to do that. I just cut the corn right off the cob, and I added it to a pot with 5 tablespoons of butter, and I'm just going to let that cook for just a few minutes. It's going to start getting really tender. It's pretty easy, and it cooks in the butter, so it gets lots of flavor. Then I added my green beans in there as well. Let those toss them around so they can get coated in the butter as well, and I let that cook for another couple minutes. Then I added in the fresh herbs. They call for a cup of fresh herbs. I didn't quite have that. I just used what I had. So I cut up some chives, some basil, and some parsley, but they said you can add other very tasty sounding herbs. I just didn't have all that stuff, so I put in what I had, and then I put some salt and pepper and just taste it as you go. See if you need some extra salt and pepper. That's just to taste. And here's what the pork looks like out of the oven. I'm going to just slice that up into some medallions. I serve that with those garlic instant mashed potatoes. A bite of that garlic mashed potato with those green bean and corn mixture was absolutely fabulous. Yeah, it was so good. And also, I loved this pork tenderloin. It's going to definitely be the best pork tenderloin recipe I probably ever tried. I loved the sauce. Everything about this came out so great. I definitely loved that a lot. I don't go for pork as often as I do chicken, but I will say that I'm definitely saving this because when I have another pork tenderloin, it's got to be like this. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you don't miss out on any future videos, and I hope you all are having a great day.